Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. We begin tonight's show with a debate. Proposition 313 is a proposed constitutional amendment that would establish a life sentence without parole for anyone convicted of child sex trafficking. Prop 13 was referred to the ballot by the legislature. Here to debate the measure, Kaylee Kozak, founder and president of Because You Still Matter, which is in favor of the measure, and Jenna Panis, CEO of the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, which opposes Prop 313. Good to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us. Kaylee, we'll start with you. Let's get the parameters figured out here. Define sex trafficking in this case.
So sex trafficking is buying or selling a child or something of value. It's not always monetarily. It has to do with exchanging them for something of value.
Okay,
in order to have sex with them.
And so using a minor for prostitution, this proposal would also target those who provide transportation and those sorts of things as well?
Yes, it could. That could also fall under this.
Okay. Why does this life in prison, no parole, why does this need to be in the Constitution?
Sex trafficking is very serious. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. In 2021 to 2022, sex trafficking cases increased by over 78% just in the state of Arizona alone. This is a huge problem, and it's time that we start being proactive with these laws and less reactive.
Why not harsher punishment for these kinds of crimes?
So it isn't really a measure of punishment versus non-punishment. It's the unintended consequences of the bill. And so this bill could harm victims, victims themselves of sex trafficking. If I may, Hollywood presents a very black and white picture of what sex trafficking is. But I had an opportunity to work with a trafficking victim who had to leave her home as a teenager at 17, moved in with a boyfriend, and was trafficked. Her boyfriend essentially encouraged her to engage in commercial sex, but her sister was still at home. When she was 18, her sister moved in with her, and they engaged in trafficking together, so engaged in commercial sex work together. They drove together because they shared a car, they kept each other safe, and eventually left the life together. That sister, a victim of trafficking herself, would be subject to lifetime imprisonment under this bill.
I guess that's kind of the question about something like this. If it's a blanket policy, everything is covered. Does that make sense, especially in the scenario we just heard?
They may be subject under this bill. Anyone under Prop 313 is a minor child, 17 and under. Also, if we're talking about a sister who is recruiting who is trafficked, they were recruited, coerced, forced. Those are mitigating circumstances. A judge would be very unlikely to sentence a victim who is sex trafficking to natural life in prison under this law. That's not who we're going after. We are going after people who put children out and sell them and buy them for sex.
Your scenario that you just gave, though, would that sister be under this proposition?
Absolutely. And so what this bill does is it makes it mandatory. So right now we have the flexibility within the system for prosecutors, for judges to be able to determine mitigating circumstances. Lifetime imprisonment is still an option on the table. We have cases, dangerous crimes against children, that allow lifetime imprisonment. So it isn't as if in Arizona we aren't punishing people for sex trafficking, that they're getting off, but rather there's an unintended consequence here to potential victims.
Is there an unintended consequence, though, to not have something like this on the books, to get these rates that are increasing, to get them to decrease?
I think what needs to happen there is prevention. So the books, the laws on the books right now are up to lifetime imprisonment with no clemency or parole. So the option is there, but it isn't showing a deterrent effect. Prevention would. And so sinking funds into prevention is the better way to do this without harming survivors.
The idea, can you want to comment on that?
Yes, please. There is no money to be made in protecting children and victims. There is, however, money to be made in selling children for sex and providing interventions and programs to those who sell children for sex. This is a very small audience or percentage that she is talking about and referring to, and it does happen. But we are overlooking the more common predators that are selling children for sex.
Is there a way to fine-tune the proposition to make sure those common predators are targeted and others are not?
We can always do better with laws, but again, we need to be proactive and less reactive. Also, a judge once said, it's not the severity that serves as a deterrent, it's the certainty of it. And in this proposition, it will be certain that if you buy or sell a child for sex, that you are going to prison forever in the state of Arizona.
Does it not? Oh, please.
And unfortunately, it's that certainty that creates harm. Most children who are trafficked by a friend or family, and so the situation that I'm describing is common. It isn't uncommon, and so when we already have the punishment on the books, we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, and unfortunately, harming folks who have been victims with a lifetime in prison of a certainty. And it's that certainty that we want to avoid. We want to keep our system of justice-oriented and not vengeance-oriented.
But does that certainty not send a message
to
those who might think about perpetrating these crimes?
Unfortunately, Kaylee is right. The certainty of punishment is what needs to happen. We already have the punishments on the books, so the certainty needs to exist around implementing what we already have. There isn't certainty in a lifetime of imprisonment. It already exists.
The punishment on the books are very lacking. We are giving, with the punishments that are currently on the books, we are giving opportunity for these traffickers to further victimize. We're giving them multiple chances. Right now, if you traffic a 15, 16, or 17-year-old, you're looking at a 10 to 14-year sentence. So why would we give them a second chance to come out and re-victimize or further victimize other innocent children?
Under this scenario, though, under Proposition 313, if a teenager, 19, 20, whatever the case may be, if they're convicted, that's ball game. Until they're 70, 80, 90, they die out, they're gone. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but they're making a choice knowing that if they are buying or selling a child for sex, that they will face natural life in prison.
Does that make sense to you?
No, it doesn't, because unfortunately we have public instances. Think about the Epstein case where friends were offering ways to make money to their friends. Trafficking under this law is not literally buying or selling a child for sex. It's also providing transportation. It's also providing a computer. It's if you know it's happening. And so those circumstances can be taken as trafficking. And unfortunately, it's the certainty. We don't oppose punishment for those who deserve it, but we feel like our justice system needs to be flexible in order to respond to all types of crimes.
Another aspect of is the flexibility, judicial, discretion here. Should there not be judicial? There can't be under Prop 13. Should there not be, though?
For this situation, no.
For this situation, back to you, victims of this, if you get a 10, 20, 24-year sentence, whatever the case may be, and the perpetrator comes up for parole, you got to go through this all over again. This would keep that from happening. Is that a good thing?
So I think what we're missing is that it is very unlikely that someone who is sex trafficking somebody, even as a first offense, is going to face a single charge of sex trafficking. And so through the use of stacked offenses, we're seeing much longer sentences than that. And so when that person comes out on parole, we do have, essentially therapy and other things for folks,
But the situation could possibly
it
exist.
absolutely could. But does that situation mitigate the harm of having a survivor in jail for life?
Again, no consideration for the nature of the offense, no consideration for previous convictions. Zippo, that's what you are calling for here.
That's what we should be calling for, yes.
Okay. If this doesn't, let's say it doesn't pass, we'll just say it doesn't pass. Is there a way to continue to ramp up punishment, ramp up the message without going life imprisonment with no chance of parole?
There is a way. We'll just go through the state legislature. But I think that this gives Arizona an opportunity to come together and say that our children are not for sale.
Yeah, and that is a message as well. I mean, it's a message to the perpetrators. You do this, it's over. It's also just a message it's a societal message, is it not?
What, the children are not for sale?
Yes.
Absolutely, and one that we agree with. However, it takes the reality out of the situation in which we have teenagers making bad decisions about other teenagers and then being subject to life imprisonment.
Jenna Panis and Kaylee Kozak, thank you both. Good debate, good conversation. Thank you for both being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.